Hi,
Hello.
here I am.
There you are. How are you doing?
Good, good. I had to unmute myself and agree to be recorded, and I
Yes.
hit the right buttons. How are you?
I am good. How was your week?
I was okay. It was quite busy, and uh, we had an opening of a Wayne Thiebaud exhibition on
Ah,
Thursday,
yes.
which went very well. And yeah, so although it was difficult not to follow the trial that's going on in Lower Manhattan.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I feel like there's no good news right now, but yeah, I mean, what are you hearing about that or think? I mean, it didn't sound like sort of anything. I mean, National Enquirer, none of that's shocking.
I think the good news is the former president of the United States being told to sit down by a judge who
Yes.
is, I mean, I think that's probably, it might historically be a first. I don't know that.
Well, yeah, and being told to put his phone away, but but the former president of the United States behaving like an eighth grader in math class, and the judge treating him like an eighth grader in math class. So, but
Yeah,
no, okay. Here's my thing on this. Okay, well, this is historic. We all seem to agree that he's not being treated fairly. 87% of Americans believe he's not being treated fairly. Unfortunately, 34% of us think he is being treated not harshly enough. However, another 34% almost exactly believe he's being treated too harshly. So, I mean, I don't know. He's getting almost every leniency. They have not ruled on the gag order. He continues to make basically threats to to both
he's got,
witnesses.
yeah, apparently he's got um two more infractions of the
Hmm.
gag order,
Hmm.
um, for which the judge will probably fine him. He can be fined $1,000 for each. So, but if he goes beyond 10, he
Yeah,
only got two more, then the judge, well, he probably won't, but he should then spend 2 hours in a prison cell where he is.
he won't though. I mean,
But he might want to do that. He might, you
yeah,
see, might
yeah,
want to do it. If he does it another time, then he's overnight in Rikers. But
right.
2 hours in a prison cell in the courthouse, if he's is
Is
could be a lot of votes for him.
no, is a lot of no. Are you saying cost him or would gain him?
No, no,
Yeah,
no, no.
it will
It would be
he
one.
fundraise on it.
He would
He's
sell more. It would sell more Bibles
yeah, no, exactly. I know he wants that. I think that's why he's doing it. In as much
yeah,
as
he wants it.
he wants it, and it's so. I know. Yeah, I mean they're treading very cautiously because Bragg is only asking for, like you said, $1,000 fines. Because he could have asked for jail time right off the bat. But again, I think everyone knows. Yeah, ultimately that's what he wants. Whether they have to give it to him because they have, and then he gets his fundraising opportunity. I mean, yeah,
But he is apparently quite he seems to be quite crushed. In other words,
yeah,
I don't think he really knew what this was going to be like, you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah,
He's that there's a little he's less bombastic, uh uh
yeah.
which may be that he's just I mean, he is, after all, almost as old as Biden. So, I mean, he's
Right. Yeah. No, and I think we already
part of
talked.
a feeling. It's stressful, you
Yeah,
know.
no, and I think we talk about this. I mean, and the whole thing about him falling asleep in court. I mean,
So,
originally I was willing to give it to him because I think we've all had long meetings or whatever. But it's only 4 days a week. One of the days he fell asleep, it was only a 4 hour session. It ended at noon. He can't stay awake for really. I mean, we're not.
but I think he's been napping afternoon for the last every afternoon for the last 10 years.
Yes.
I'm
No,
sure he
right.
had two
Sure.
hour naps when he was president.
After
And
golf, after the golf. Yeah. No. Right. So I
yeah,
mean.
after his grueling game of golf, right?
But okay, so and then what? Explain to me. I don't know. What did you hear in the news about the SCOTUS? Because what I heard was they're leaning towards immunity defense, but don't they haven't ruled anything yet. And so what does it mean when it's reported what they're leaning towards? I mean,
I think that's speculation based
yeah,
on the questions that they're asking.
yeah,
So
yes, yeah, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
which probably reveals where each one is sort of coming from. But I think the net result for Trump will be a more delay, which is what he
Of
wants.
course, no, of course. I mean,
So
okay, yeah. Well, Alito referenced the old saying, like, they would indict a ham sandwich, but that really kind of says what he thinks about the American public, their intelligence, and what he thinks about the law, which he is. I mean, he is the highest juror of this land, and he thinks, people would indict a ham sandwich. There's not really any. He doesn't. Does he think crime is real? Does he think? I don't know what he mean. I mean, I know what that saying means. I've heard it, but to hear it out of the mouth of a Supreme Court justice is really
who said that?
Alito, Justice Samuel Alito.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's an old kind of joke among lawyers that you could get them to indict a ham sandwich, but that doesn't. That's not a rule of law that you introduce as a.
Well, it's also not exactly going to provide much fodder for a sober book, a volume of your court, what you said in court over your lifetime, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
it's not exactly something that you would expect to hear in public, certainly but well, this is what we've got,
This is what we've
unfortunately.
got. Yep.
And we know how we've got them. So, can I just make a comment about the campus?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because what absolutely baffles me. Okay, so I'm assuming that the average age of a university president would now be 50 to 60. Would that be right? They wouldn't be as old as I
No,
am.
I'm thinking of Claudine Gay, the younger. I think it's probably 40s.
Younger.
Yeah,
Okay.
40s.
So they're not, they did not participate in or witness firsthand the anti-war protests of
No,
the
right.
late 60s,
Yes. Yeah.
where it was it 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 would have been glaringly obvious to anybody that as soon as you allow uniformed police
Right.
or military onto a campus,
Right.
you are basically lighting a match to whatever
Yeah.
is
Oh no.
smoldering.
We
I mean, it seems to me that I cannot imagine, and the excuses, one of them was, well, we're afraid for their safety because they're cooking in tents. I mean,
Right. No. Okay. Well, that's the same. That's the same fear mongering, and that's why our fire department is aligned with our police department and our parks department in encampments. This is just general homeless encampments, not campus encampments. But I think. Yeah, I just keep thinking of Kent State, Kent State, Kent State. Something's going to happen, and I don't think you're right. I think lighting a match is exactly.
If you want to radicalize the rest of the students or half of the rest of the students, that's the way to do it,
Yeah.
isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
it just.
Yeah. But I think we are very much in a place, I think, and again, this is how quickly things change. We were, 4 years ago when we were talking about George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and whatnot, we were talking about defund the police in a real sincere way, not in a way that the right wing is throwing it around like they all defunded the police and crime went up. First of all, no police department has been defunded. There's no evidence ever. Seattle City Council, the old one, not our current sort of very right-wing one, but the old one made a statement that they would defund and then take that money and give it to community groups. That never happened. All they did was sort of make a resolution, which you can make resolutions all day. It doesn't happen. Um,
Yeah.
but in the 4 years since, we as a society, I mean, those were conversations we were having on the national news, in Time magazine and whatnot. Like, what would it mean to redirect money away from police and towards other community engaged groups that are really actually focused on crime? Because one of the things that the messaging got very clearly was, police don't solve crime, period. Police don't stop crime, period. And especially for black and brown people. But here we are 4 years later that it's the only solution we have. So we'll keep throwing money at it. And it's, I mean, you know, and yes, so even like, you know, quote unquote, liberal college campuses, it's the first thing they think of. It's not, they didn't, I don't know. I mean, there were 100 different ways they could have gone about it. I'm sure I mean, they have lawyers. I'm sure they have access to mediation. There are 100 different ways they could have gone about this. That being said, I think the hardest thing about any sort of talks with any of the students, and some of the excuses that they're using is they won't talk with us. It's because you know their demands. Their demands are you need to divest of companies, of their stock, of anyone who is doing business with the state of Israel to send a message to the state of Israel. And that's a very clear and specific message. And there's nothing I mean, if they're not willing to do that, there's not much of a talk. And so go.
If they're not, if the protests are non-violent,
Yes.
regardless of what the issues are or whose
Yes.
side on what side,
Yes.
the university is presumably the first and the last place to engage in free speech
Yes.
for all the students.
Yes.
All the students and all their points of view.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So once you bring the police in or the military in, you divide them. Now, I understand there may be non-students involved.
Yes.
And I think there is possibly there are possibly reasons for somehow managing to not allow non-students in. I don't know. It's a gray area.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really torn on that. I think that gets tricky for a variety of reasons, because students and non-students have leagues and organizations all the time. They have, what about alumni associations? So now you're not allowing alumni on campus, or now, you know, like to say.
I realize
it's specifically, I understand specifically this argument of outside agitators, and there are professional protesters, and there are people who's, I mean, it's how they derive their income, and they latch on to topics, and sometimes whether their intentions are sincere or insincere, whether their intentions are, and I think specifically who is leading some of these protests, I think are valid questions to ask, because having gone myself as a legal observer and brought my video camera, I've heard people chanting things firsthand that made me uncomfortable. Not anything that was necessarily anti-Semitic, but things that made me uncomfortable. No, I'm sorry. Actually, let me take it back. Things about a one-state solution. And if you're talking about a one-state solution, you're talking about the erasure of Israel. That does strike me. That is crossing a line that I'm not comfortable with. And that's what I hear people with megaphones chanting. And so I question some of these protesters. I question some of their tactics. I'm also like, is this just me getting old? And this would have been me 30 years ago. But
well, I think for me, the issue is when it becomes violent, when it becomes, but but
what about when it becomes hate speech? Because there's this whole argument over whether it's, and I think I really appreciate NPR did they ran through exactly their methodology for things. And so, for instance, criticizing Netanyahu or the state of Israel is not anti-Semitic inherently. Criticizing Netanyahu and implying or in any way stating it is because he is Jewish, anti-Semitic. Calls for genocide, NPR won't do that, but they will reference it when someone else has. The reason they don't is because genocide is a very specific legal term. It is a crime. It is as yet unproven. To prove genocide, you need to prove intent, and that's very rarely historically, whether it is commonly known or associated as a genocide like Rwanda or not, very rarely is it actually legally documented as a genocide. And that's why they don't. So, of course, they're journalists. They have a very high standard of how they refer to things. But I think, yeah, no, I think people are very disingenuous when they label anyone who is pro-Palestine, regardless of what they're saying about specifically about the fact, for instance, the last month has been, you can look at the morgue records for yourself online, women and children who have been killed in Palestine, but to say you're pro-Hamas if you say that, you know, I mean, I think it's disingenuous, but people are using these straw man arguments to not then really have real debate. If my enemy is a terrorist
Yeah,
sympathizer, I don't really have to.
yes. I think what's the victim here is the real debate. The victim here is debates with Jewish students who are pro-Palestine, you know,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are many points of view here.
Nuance, yes. But
In the middle, from the left to the right to the left.
and as is often the case, there are extremists on both sides who don't want to get to that more nuanced, well, to me, interesting and important conversation because they want to hammer their views. And again, I'm not a centrist. I consider myself very leftist, but there are ways and tactics that some on the left go about that I don't agree with, and it's
yeah.
yeah.
Well,
which pushed me farther to the center, which is interesting. That, you know, it pushes me to seek out others other than to if they're so extreme.
Middle-aged drift.
I know, no, I know, and yeah.
Yes, but no, I think it's unfortunate that a side issue is that students who didn't graduate high school because of COVID may not be graduating college because of this. In other words, that there is a year of students who,
if they're not graduating because of this, they'll gain. Well, no, this is me, a non-college graduate who's now suffering.
no, I mean they'll get degrees, but they won't. I mean, they don't get the walk, what they call the walk.
Oh, well, I was going to say they'll get something much more out of what they're doing right now. But no, okay. So yes, we were talking about that young lady, the valedictorian who in USC, University of Southern California, who first they canceled her speech. They didn't even know what her speech was. Her speech was going to be about hope, only because she had a social media post from years ago that linked to something that said something. So first they canceled her speech, then they canceled the special guests. Again, this is all citing security, and I loved what you said that really reframed it for me, that they host presidents. How are they using security as an excuse? This is obviously an excuse. And then they just canceled the whole event. So you're right. Like, people now, they're just not, they're just, rather than stepping up, but people pay for this. College, we're talking about some of the highest cost institutions in the country. People pay for this for years, sometimes their whole lifetime. Some people are paying for student loans and retirement at the same time. You know, I mean, and they can't be bothered to do a graduation because it's just a little bit too complicated.
Some of those graduations are 50,000 people strong. I mean, if you sacrificed to get your kid in college, you'd like to be there on that day. I mean, it may be ceremonial, but I think it's
But that being said, all news is bad. It's all bad news. I mean, I feel like just the overall conversation, and I think all the criticism of university administration is valid, but all of this also just plays into a very right-wing, college is all bad, it's not that great, and it's anti-education, I mean, the same thing that has now trickled down into high schools. They're indoctrinating our kids, they're blah, 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 blah. And this all now just fits into, I mean,
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't think that far along. So, yeah, so.
That doesn't mean we don't criticize them, because it doesn't, right?
No,
but
it's a know-nothing point of view, right?
I mean, well,
apparently the Republican Party has now requested that protesters be moved very far away from their convention. There was already going to be a park, which the protesters would be.
Yes.
They weren't actually going to be allowed
inside,
or to even cross the street
right?
if Republicans are walking towards the convention. But
Right.
now they're so scared, they want them moved to another part of town. I mean, which is again, it's a step towards censorship. I mean, it's a step towards.
I am having a hard time having energy for that. I know, I hear you. I don't see it's where, I mean, the people who they're protesting against won't hear it, no matter how close or far away they
Well,
are.
that's true. Yeah.
So, I mean, I mean, I think it, but it, I mean, no, I think that's interesting. I think I think what is interesting about that is both the chilling effect and then laws that will be hammered through quickly by people with agendas to limit free speech while also declaring free speech, which also usually means the right to be racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, etc. They will limit now what protesting means, and they've been doing this for a long time. I mean, okay, two things from that. One, Trump compared the campus protests to Charlottesville. No one asked him to. No one else brought up Charlottesville favorably. I mean, again, Charlottesville favorably.
Yes.
Compared to these riots on campuses, which again, there has not been one death associated, but and and no one asked him to. This is his platform. He's bringing these up. No one asked him to. Well, I'm not. No one. The families did, but he recorded an album with January 6th protesters that he plays at his rallies. This is his base. This is his platform. He's not. All of this is in very plain sight, and those are his very fine people who he loved. If I were Joe Biden, first of all, my campaign video would just be that January 6th video of him standing outside the White House awkwardly, finally after 3.5 minutes getting to go home, but first saying, "We love you." Like just that clip of him saying, "We love you" to January 6th protesters over and over and over in every swing state. Like that's all, that would be it. That would be the whole campaign. He loves them. And he's inciting them right now. But no, comparing colleges to that, and then, yeah, no, they're gonna use this to create laws that limit how you can protest, and they've been doing that since Black Lives Matter to say to which were predominantly nonviolent, but there was property damage, but and me, an apologist for, I'm sorry cop cars got lit on fire, but I don't, and I'm not making excuses for that, and that's not violence, that's not driving a car into a human being, that's not, you can false equivocate all you want, and it's not, I don't know.
Well, it's also not a neo-Nazi philosophy, which is which is what he's basically espousing. I mean, it's without any there's no nuance there. I mean, he thinks they're fine people. So if you had to bet now, do you think he can be president?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
You do. You do.
Unfortunately, yes. I mean, I think it would be foolish at this point to not prepare for that, and again, and to prepare for that doesn't mean any kind of prepper, like, I just mean, I don't,
thinking like buying more canned beans.
No, well, okay, just remember, toilet paper ran out on his watch. In no other presidency in my entire lifetime could you not buy toilet paper. And again, I'm not blaming him for the pandemic, because that would be a cheap shot, but response to the pandemic, the fact that the supply chains weren't, that they didn't, there's a lot you can do there with what he did wrong. He wants it both ways, where he wants credit for rushing the vaccine, which I actually do give him credit. I was so shocked that he was saying these positive things, but then he also questioned the
I think basically his ability to do nothing had both positive and negative results.
Yeah.
So,
yes. No.
His passivity allowed other people to rush through something that was positive.
Yes, and I think that but I think that that's true of a variety of organizations, small and
well,
large.
I think it's true. I think that I mean, who is it? Clinton famously said that the morning he woke up as president, he realized that about the only thing he had authority to do was to eat as much ice cream as he wanted. But in order to get anything else done, he was not. In other words, I'm not a king. I'm not.
Mhm.
But Trump's attitude was, I am a king. So it's my
Right.
Secret Service, it's my
Yeah.
Supreme Court, it's my Attorney General. So yeah.
I think it's interesting that, but I also think it's interesting that his narrative has not shifted. I had actually forgotten this. The DOJ, the FBI, they're all corrupt. It's all deep state. It's all, we're going to clean the swamp. Christopher Wray, who is the head of the FBI, is his own appointee. They wouldn't have approved, the 88 indictments.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. The facts don't matter.
Well, if he cleared the swamp, the people who cleared it have turned into swamp.
Which only proves that, or that was never his intention, and yeah, I don't know.
I don't think it was his. I don't think he had the knowledge or ability. It's a good catchphrase, but
It is a good catchphrase.
I don't think he even knows. I don't think he has a 10th grader's understanding of how the government works anyway.
Yeah,
So,
no, I think you're right. Oh, I think you're definitely right on that. Okay, we've talked about, this can't be the
let's
Trump
move on.
episode. What else what else?
Entertainment, okay?
Taylor
World
Swift?
of entertainment.
Taylor Swift.
Um,
Thoughts? Poets, poetry. Okay, Etsy, poet searches for poetry, just like how she made those friendship bracelets sell out. Searches for blank journals and poetry related supplies are up 700%. Her album is called Tortured Poet Society. She got the kids talking about poetry. It's almost, again, I asked you think about it, please.
I sent it to you.
Oh, you did. Oh, okay. I need to look. But yeah, no, it's National Poetry Month. I'm always.
Yeah, I sent it to you.
Okay, I will look for it. No, I will look for it. Sorry if I missed that. Thank you.
It's a history of New York.
But yes, just thoughts on Taylor Swift, thoughts on poetry.
But I mean, I don't. That says so much, positive and negative, about our society. In other words, for a mega pop star to mention the word poetry in the title of an album, to make people aware that such a thing exists. I mean, and they actually have Harvard students going through her album. I mean, to have.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, I think it's. I don't know.
Okay. Careful, because
it's good. It's good. Look,
it's good. It's good. Okay.
It inspires one person who one day becomes a great poet, and they're 80 years old, and they're at the White House, and they say, "What inspired you?" And they say, "Well, there was a Taylor. No one will know who Taylor Swift was by then, in 60 years' time, or whatever." And they'll say there was this music album that is called Tortured Poets, and that's when I decided I wanted to be a tortured poet. And
so she referenced Patti Smith. She referenced Patti Smith and Dylan Thomas in the same song. Patti Smith replied and said specifically, "Thank you for putting me in such lofty heights as Dylan Thomas." But there's something.
She's not stupid.
She's not stupid. And specifically, what her fans, for people who don't get her music or like her music, and I don't love all her music, some of it is not my style at all, but she is a songwriter. She is a confessional songwriter. In the history of great confessional songwriters, whether that's Billy Joel, Paul Simon, Bob Dylan, she is an intensely talented confessional songwriter, intensely personal, who connects with her fans on a level that if you don't get it, I get that you don't get it, but to me, I have a respect for how she does it and what she does.
I buy that. I will buy that. Yeah. No, I mean.
And then back to what you said about what it says about our society. I agree, and we have to run with that. So she said, go out and vote. She didn't say who to vote for. She just said, go out and vote. And 65,000 people registered that day. So I mean, it's At the same time, I guess, well, no, we're still in the world of entertainment. So The Rock said, he didn't say, I regret endorsing Joe Biden. What he said was, in 2020, which he did, he endorsed Joe Biden. He said he is not endorsing anyone in 2024, and he regrets alienating some of his fans. But that got turned into, I regret endorsing Joe Biden and blah, blah, blah. But I think people are pushing, I guess part of that is what made me think, people are pushing Taylor Swift to endorse Joe Biden. She didn't, I don't believe, during 2020, but after the fact, or 2016, I don't know. In any event, she is always, again, she came up in country music. She lives in Tennessee. She has traditionally been apolitical, but more recently, like I said, she just said vote. She didn't say who to vote for, but she's also expressed opinions here and there, and it would lean only because she's blonde hair and blue-eyed, and nationalists actually attached themselves to her and tried to pick out, just like everyone does, pieces of her lyrics that I could identify with, that she had to like come out and say, no, not that. But she's typically apolitical. The Rock, I could get why a celebrity would choose to be apolitical in 2024. Like, I don't blame them. I don't, even myself.
But what fans did he disappoint?
Okay.
Trump?
Okay.
Trump?
No, okay. But okay. Thank you. Thank you for spinning it back on me, because I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. But here's the thing. Okay. There's a country artist named Morgan Wallen. He said,
Yeah.
so he had, I don't know what, like a few 100,000 supporters. Then a video was leaked of him saying the N-word. Then his album shot up to #1 the next week. He continues to be a top recording artist. He continues to actually, his career is still defined by this, because this happened during, again, the George Floyd in 2020. He still has to be reminded of this. I don't blame him. He says increasingly better things. He actually promised to donate money that I don't think he ever did, but that's not even my issue. My issue is not with Morgan Wallen. My issue is with the industry and the record labels and his fans. So it's not him. The fact that his record label shot his song went up to #1 that week, that block of fans are not people who are fans despite the fact that he said the N-word.
Well, because.
And so that's his fandom now. He wasn't selling out arenas, so everyone who comes to those arenas, and again, this isn't an indictment of him, because I'm less interested in him. I'm interested in everyone who saw that happen, could have said, oh, this is weird. Let's find a different artist to push up, because payola, we can do that. And I know how the industry works, I'm sorry. But said, well, this is the horse we rode in on, so let's keep pushing it up. And continues to profit, knowing that that is the block, but also that's the block you're going to have to continue to sell to. So again, this now goes back to him. Every record is going to have some
he knows his fan base.
You're going to have dog whistles. You're going to have to, and again, I listen to it, and I don't listen to his music for enjoyment, but I want to hear what kind of music he's putting out, to see if I can. It's not about his music. It's not about him. It's not about the fact that he apologized and made it very clear, but it's about the fact that everyone who shows up in those stadiums are showing up for, but also then this is me saying everyone who is pro-Palestine is pro-Hamas, because that's not true. Many of those people never heard about that controversy. They became fans years later, and see how easy it is to like box someone into a perspective if you disagree with it.
Well, I think the whole issue of popular music and politics, when we have I think it's in Syria, there's a rapper who is now on a death sentence because he refused to stop using anti-government sentiments.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's either Iran or Syria,
Mm-hmm.
and he's 22 or something, and he has been sentenced to death. Meanwhile, there are pop singers and bands and rappers who are totally pro-Putin, who are totally pro-Moscow, who are totally pro. So I mean, I remember seeing Elvis go to visit Nixon in the White House.
Yes.
So
What was that like at the time? I've only seen, like, to me, it's like through a very specific lens of like almost like weird pop culture nostalgia. Like, ha ha ha, isn't that weird? Not like
it actually wasn't. It wasn't weird because as Elvis got older, he kind of, for Beatles generation people, he morphed into, or he went back to a kind of being a bit of a cracker, a Southern
a
cracker.
good old boy. Yeah, no, yeah.
Even though he was in, and especially because he was in Vegas, the idea of being covered in glitter in Vegas, you
Yes.
know, and kind of leaning therefore towards the history of the Rat Pack, you know,
Yes.
and that had a, well, I know there were Democrats involved, but it certainly had a very establishment kind of ring to it.
Yeah.
And
Okay. Okay. And
Nixon would have
I always
embraced
forget.
him
So you.
because Nixon. Go
No,
ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No, you're telling the history, and
So
I'm interrupting you.
Nixon embraced Elvis because he probably hated Elvis Presley's music when he
Sure.
was, you know,
Yeah.
but it was a chance for Nixon to show
yeah,
like
yeah.
to be groovy, and
Yes.
actually to the hipsters, like they deserve each other. You
Right,
know?
no, right, no, yes, no, I very get that, and I always have to remember too, because I was listening to Sammy yesterday. To me, the Rat Pack is actually cool, but the Rat Pack from, if you were counterculture in that day, they were establishment. They were,
Totally.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, I get I get that. Right, no, she gets hungry for dinner at 8.
Yeah.
No.
I got to feed my doggies now because I'm the
Okay.
only one here.
Yeah.
I'm going to Omaha next weekend
Okay.
because Victoria has an exhibition opening in the
Nice.
International Quilt Center in Nebraska.
Yes.
So, and I'm flying back. So I'll see you in 2 weeks. Is that
Okay.
okay?
Yeah, no, have a great time.
Have a great week.
Okay,
Love
bye.
you, son.
I
Bye.
love you.